Hey everybody, my name's Sassy, and I've been dancing for food since the day I entered this tank. But my shy sister back there took much longer to come around. Today we're going to talk about how to get shy seahorses, or new seahorses, to eat their food.
Welcome to the Seahorse Whisperer channel. Today let's talk about how to get that new seahorse eating properly. It's the absolute best feeling in the world when you finally get your seahorses. Oh wow. Oh wow. Oh my gosh. No bad. Oh my gosh. They're beautiful. Oh my gosh. After spending so much time setting up the seahorse tank properly, preparing, and then putting them in quarantine after proper temperature acclimation, when they won't eat, it's so frustrating. So I'm going to give you a couple quick tips and tricks to get those seahorses eating, because you have to remember that even captive bred seahorses go through a lot of stress in shipping, and they just need some time to unwind and get used to you. Doesn't mean they're sick, and you should give them time. But let's get to the tips and tricks. This is how to get your seahorses eating if they're stubborn and stressed. Tip number 1 is to get the seahorses as comfortable as possible as quickly as possible. You will not be very successful feeding seahorses if they're stressed out. Following acclimation instructions, especially regarding temperature, along with ensuring that the seahorses are not exposed to ammonia either in the bag or in the tank, and then providing plenty of hitches so that the seahorses can feel safe, will allow them to de-stress and realize that they're hungry. I usually try to feed the seahorses right away. I don't always expect them to eat, but I don't dim lights, I don't turn anything down. I want them to get used to what they're going to have to get used to, and I want to get them eating as soon as possible. As you can see, these two just were not having it. They were more interested in staring at the big face that was looking at them. Tip number 3 would be adjust the flow. Seahorses should be able to swim freely, but moving food is always more enticing. Typically they'll start to show interest in the food, but it's so frustrating when they still won't go after it. I don't usually have a sump on a quarantine tank, so these little spray bar internal filter deals really work to keep the food moving, or you can even use an airline if you don't want it to move that much, but just need a little bit of movement to get them eating. Or if you like building things, you can literally make an airlift. There are lots of different options, but seahorses are much less likely to eat food that just sits there, so make it move. In many of my videos, and in fact in the feeding methods video on YouTube, you see me use a baster a lot. And I also talk about feeders often. Both of these are great, and in fact I use a baster on the piebald tank. But in the case of new seahorses, chasing them with a baster is not a great plan. What will work is being patient and allowing them time to adjust and start eating. Tip 4 is to move away from the tank. I know how hard this can be, but seahorses need to feel safe to start eating, and as soon as they do, you'll be able to watch them eat all the time. When I put some food into the tank and then backed up, well, it didn't take very long before they were eating away. As you can see, Sassy went right after it, but Sister was still acting shy. I mentioned in the beginning that I don't coddle my seahorses because I want them to get used to being around my rambunctious kids and lively lifestyle. But if your new seahorses aren't eating and the tank happens to be in a high traffic area, covering the back and the sides can help, and fewer distractions from outside the tank could allow the seahorses to calm down and begin eating. It's my opinion that different species of seahorses eat differently, so it really is a matter of playing with the situation and finding what works. After I temperature acclimated and then added my Hippocampus cuda to their tank, they took a little time to de-stress and adjust, and then they went right after food. But they would only eat a couple little bites. I of course removed all of the extra food within half an hour and started trying different things at each feeding. With these guys, I figured out that they just wanted smaller food. They also are weird like the reed-eye and seem to like pieces that have eyeballs attached. But tip 6 is to use a smaller sized or different brand of frozen mysis. They might be used to eating something that you're not giving them. Asking the breeder or seller can always help you figure out what they want to eat. Tip number 7 is really important whether the seahorse is new or not. Making sure that you're feeding good foods is extremely important. I've written a very long article about it, and I will link that in the description, and you should be able to click in the video to see it. There's a video on how to properly rinse your frozen foods coming, but the point for this video is that seahorses are much more likely to eat clean, fresh foods. Tip number 8 is to have live foods on hand in case these seahorses will not eat the frozen. In fact, even if my seahorses give me no trouble, I still buy live foods that I can enrich and use as little vitamin treats. Even if you're not a master culturist, is that even a word? You can buy live Artemia or mysids from many vendors, which I will link in the description. And very soon I'll have the Cheryl Taylor videos done showing you how to enrich and clean Artemia. But when dealing with seahorses who will not eat, live foods are something that even the most stubborn seahorse just cannot refuse. We can always wean them onto frozen later, but we need them eating now. Tip number 9 is actually an old breeder trick, used often to wean fry. The idea is to put an older seahorse that's already used to eating in with the newer seahorses. When the newer seahorse sees the older seahorses eating, they somehow think it's okay and will start eating themselves. Seahorses are just curious creatures and they like to one-up each other. While this method does seem to always work, you must keep in mind that it's at your own risk. Putting an older seahorse with newer seahorses does expose them to anything wrong with the newer seahorses, and the older seahorse should remain with the newer seahorses for the duration of the quarantine period. I personally use this tip when I'm confident about where I got the seahorses and that they're healthy, or if I raise the seahorses myself.
Oh my gosh, they're not eating. They did not just eat that bite. And look, that one's moving kind of funny. And do you think that one's breathing heavy? I don't know. I really think they might be sick because it's been 2 minutes and they haven't eaten. I've got to do something. I read all about endometriosis in seahorses and acidilatosis that Susie's seahorses got, and I just can't risk this.
I think that I'll go get online and post to everyone under the sun that I bought a bad seahorse. You guys, please don't do this. If you did not get the answers you needed from this video, please come join us on the Seahorse Whisperer Society. That's what we're there for. We want you to come and ask questions. Or even better, call and ask the vendor or breeder who sold you the seahorses. They have a right to try to help you figure out what's going on and get the seahorses eating before we take the information online and ruin reputations and start a bunch of mess. I mean, you're gonna go and talk to someone who has been keeping seahorses for 2 minutes. They're gonna give you bad advice about treating a seahorse and or possibly killing the seahorse when all it needed was a little time and stress relief. I'm telling you, you're better off calling the breeder or hanging out with us cool kids at the society. But anyways, 10 was to stay calm and have patience. A seahorse will not starve after 1 day without food, and more harm can be done when you assume the worst and jump into action versus letting them get used to the tank. Miss Lucy is working on an even more detailed video covering weaning seahorses from live to frozen foods, and discussing her method of using a net as a seahorse feeder. We talked a little bit on Wine Wednesday, and it's really, really cool to see and learn how she accomplishes this. So be sure to watch out for this video and tune in to Wine Wednesday because she's there every week, showing her tanks, sharing her experiences, and helping answer questions. We hope to see you this Wednesday. Thank you so much for watching the video. Hope that it did help some people. I always take suggestions, and we're working on a lot of videos coming up to help even more. But please give this video a big thumbs up and make sure to subscribe, and we will see you in the next video and of course on Wine Wednesday.